my name is Danita Sims, and I lead a nonprofit called Passion Pursuit. And I got in good with the people here at DeKalb Township. They do some awesome work, and they thought that my services and personality apparently would help folks in the job search. Okay, what a big thing that we've seen just throughout during the pandemic, some of it was before the pandemic, but definitely during the pandemic, was not only people being open to remote jobs or something they can do from home because everything else stopped, but also companies trying to get creative on how to create remote jobs, right? How can they still get on their books and say it's worth paying this person this much to do this type of service, which is probably why you all have had the experience you had, because they got creative with how can we give stuff that in-person people probably hate, and let's give it to someone who can do it from home. And because maybe it's home, it's a little less stressful. What's typically stressful doesn't work well all the time, right? Dealing with folks and dealing with equipment, stuff like that. But they're trying, so we're all trying. So I just want you to know, there's some things that employers expect job seekers to know, and this is why I like to present information like this, okay? If you can go to the next one, and I'll share a little bit. Oh, does it do that? Or will it, oh, you might have to scroll down because you downloaded it.
Is that what?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what are we going to talk about today? So who's in the room? Like, who are we? Can you afford that job? This is huge. I know we hear remote or work from home and we have assumptions. And so employers have assumptions too. So I like to go a little bit over, can you even afford the job that you're looking at? The power of personal branding. If you're replying remotely, believe it or not, that is your handshake. Remote, electronic. So if you're not good at explaining yourself on paper and online as a presentation, and that's why I say personal branding, because that's literally what it feels like when you're pushing yourself out there. But this is a big piece if you're trying to compete for remote jobs that don't drive you crazy. And then finding legitimate remote jobs, right? I'm going to share a little bit of information about where, at least in my experience as a job coach here, I've seen legitimate jobs be found, okay? And then, so who we are, was that the first one? Probably. Sorry, we're switching around. Look, whichever one comes up, that's the one I was talking about. Okay, perfect. So DeKalb Township, does everyone know what the DeKalb Township is? Right, I didn't know for a very long time. Nope. So they offer, and Kim can talk about this too. She can please chime in at any point, but I tried to pull as many services as I could remember, as well as what they have on their site. I mean, they handle things like property tax information, road district information. The cemeteries, believe it or not, need to be managed, right? Mm-hmm. Someone needs to do that and make sure they're covered. Library cards for unincorporated residents, believe it or not, there's some areas where they're not incorporated. And so they're like, well, how do I get this done? It's very technical, but the township handles stuff like that. So they're used to dealing with difficult people, okay? And then they also offer financial assistance for residents, depending on if they qualify for general assistance or emergency assistance programs. They also have a committee on youth and scholarships available as well, believe it or not. And they have a human services grant that they issue out to different nonprofits in the area. And then my umbrella comes under employment assistance. So you'll see a tab on their site for employment assistance. Did you want to add anything, Kim?
So what I will say is there are 3 divisions to the township. There is the road district, there is the assessor's office, and there's a supervisor's office. So you all today are receiving a benefit from the supervisor's office. It's the supervisor's office that oversees the cemeteries. It's the supervisor's office that handles the general assistance and any other town service we choose to provide to the community. So that will include a couple times a year, we do recycling events where people can bring their recycling or and we'll shred for free for township residents. We do an electronics recycling event once a year. We hosted the Secretary of State here about a month and a half ago. We're going to be doing that again in January, so people can schedule appointments to come in and renew their driver's license or their stickers with us here directly. And we're always looking to expand the services that we're offering to the community. To Danita's point, with the Human Services Grant, the reason we get that grant is because in theory, we could use tax dollars to actually provide those services. But there's no need for us to reinvent the wheel. So if somebody in the community is already offering to the community the services we could be using tax dollars for, we would rather share those funds with those organizations so that they can continue the work that they're doing. And so a number of local nonprofits that I'm sure you're well familiar with actually receive funding from the township every year so that they can offer the human services that are available. And Miss Danita is here because she's amazing. If you've not yet worked with her
to say that.
if you've not yet worked with her, and if you are struggling to find your niche, I would say she is exceptionally skilled in working with people, especially non-traditional employees. So if somebody who's maybe they're re-entering the workforce because they've been reincarcerated, or maybe they once had one job, but because of a medical condition, they're no longer able to do that. The season of life, maybe they're a new mom and they've got kids and they're struggling with different things. So she's really, really, really good about helping people to take the experience they have and to make themselves valuable in maybe a different environment or in a different industry than what they've done in the past. So I can't say enough about her. I'm glad that she is here.
Oh, she's so sweet. I do. That's kind of my specialty, is my transitioning professionals, but yeah. So yeah, thank you, Kim. You're welcome. So a little bit about Passion Pursuit. It's a separate nonprofit. It's smaller. So we launched in 2019 and our goal was to focus on personal growth and professional development. That was our growth. And we say future leaders because I didn't want to limit us to an age group or anything like that. Because again, my specialty was transitioning. So it could be a youth, going into the workforce for the first time, but it could be someone transitioning industries or life stuff happens and you got to make decisions. And that's really frustrating to do if you're used to working all the time and being independent and all of a sudden you don't know what they expect and should they know how amazing I am? I told them what I did. They should know, and they don't know. But I help you tell your story in a professional way. Most people, say they do great at interviews. I've offered mock interviews. I always offer that support, but most people feel like if I get in the interview, I'm fine. So my job, I found, is to make sure they get the interview, make sure you get the attention to get into the interview, okay? And that includes with remote jobs. So we offer even through the township here. So I'm here on Wednesday mornings. I can be here physically in person for meetings and job coaching. It's usually about 30, 45 minutes we meet, at least for the initial meeting. But I also offer it via Zoom as well. Some people can't stand Zoom, so we end up just talking on the phone. That's fine. But I usually ask for things like a resume. If they have a LinkedIn already, I'll take a look at some of those things just to see what they're already putting out there. And we talk one-on-one until they find employment they're looking for. Okay. And to that point, I also send out these weekly job leads. So if you've seen any of these on Facebook or on the township site, I'm curating this for our lovely folks at the township, but also any of the clients that I've met with, you get this personally emailed to you as well with live links. Okay. Does anybody want a copy of this? This is the latest one.
Yes, please.
Okay. So this, I think this week was this, and then I have last week too. So I'll pass these out too. So if you want an electronic version of this, I'll have a space to put your email, or you can take a picture of my email. And this is for last week too, if you want to pass it around. So that just shows you what's on that list. If you're really super active already, some of these you might already know are available. This is kind of an interest I picked up doing case management for, if anyone ever heard of WIA or the WorkNet office. So I used to work there for years as a case manager. And this was a feature I felt like was missing in our process. So we just adopted it here for the township as well. So it's like, people need to know.
So
I'm a nerd.
Speak to how you decide what jobs go on your list, because there's way more jobs available than what's on that list.
So what I try to do is I go to usually Indeed or LinkedIn, or if I've literally heard from an employer that they're hiring. So I want to know that they're hiring right now. I want to know that the post is recent, and I want to know, most of the time I want to know exactly how much they pay, right? So some places I I have a history with them, or I know people that have hired before, so they're more trustworthy. So if they don't put the pay or they just have a range, I'm usually okay with that. Or if an employer reaches out, sometimes they do reach out through the township to say, how do we get on that list? And then they have to talk to me. And I say, what are you really looking for, right? We've all seen those long job descriptions, and sometimes employers have that description, but it may not really be exactly what they're looking for. So that's why I love to curate the list and make sure people are aware, hey, or I might even tell a client, you know, this place is hiring, or this is a role that's available in Sycamore, but send me your resume first, because the employer might have shared with me what they're looking for. And then I may call the client up and say, hey, I see your resume has this company's actually looking for this. Do you have any experience whatsoever, whether it's volunteering, so it's about making a good match. But I want to make sure our job seekers get as much information as possible, especially my serious job seekers. I have yet to come across, I might have come across maybe 2 or 3 people in the past 10 years that they're just not looking. Most people are looking. It's about finding what works, right? What fits. But the employer wants that too. They don't always say that, but that's what their hope is as well. So I try to provide as much, you know, information as possible to help you make a decision if you want to go through that application process, right? Because some of them are very long, and you have to create a profile, and you have to pull up this, and you got to get samples, and you got to get references. So I want to make sure it's worth your while. And then sometimes I just get fun with it and do different topics depending on the season. Like in workforce, September is an uptick of usually hiring. So you might see me like in the next couple of weeks kind of speak to topics about that. So I might do a theme for that week, depending on what's going on in the market. Yeah. Does that make sense? Were you thinking about something else?
No,
Oh, okay.
thank you.
So I'm technically the DeKalb Township job coach. So if you call here for services, or if you're looking for employment and they suggest that you meet with a job coach, you'll be meeting with me, whether that's in person or over Zoom. So personally, right now, oh my goodness, it's been over 14 years in workforce. Some capacity, whether that's case management, business development. I've worked with Kishwaukee College. I worked with the WIOA grant. It's a federal grant for people returning to the workforce, wanting to get training. So some of those application processes and things like that, I'm very familiar with, and I can speak to you as the job seeker, the career seeker, person looking to upskill your training about some of those programs. Or if somebody qualifies for some of them, I'll encourage them, hey, go apply, because they have the funds to cover the cost of it. They may even help you travel to the training. So I make sure I provide those resources as well. I'm also a member, Passion Pursuit is also part of the Chamber, DCMP, which is a nonprofit partnership. I have my master's in urban planning. I was told people were interested in this information. I'm an e-commerce mompreneur, meaning I'm a mom and I have an online store as well. Self-published author. If you want to publish your own book, let me know. Okay. And then I've also been a life coach via Tony Gaskins, my mentor, Life. So sometimes you'll hear me say, okay, I'm putting on my life coach hat right now. I'm gonna say something and you let me know if it's okay. And if not, okay, I'll put back on my job coach. We can switch back and forth, it's fine. And then, so can you afford that job? This is huge. What is your internet and Wi-Fi access? I know this seems obvious, but a lot of people don't know. So checking, depending on the pockets of where you live, this could be an issue. You might even see some remote employers, especially the bigger ones. I'm talking Netflix, Meta, which is right up the street. If they're asking to hire someone for remote roles, the very last thing they want to hear you complain about is your internet and Wi-Fi. If you don't, my rule of thumb is if you can't afford decent Wi-Fi now, at least find out how much it's going to cost. So with that first check, you're covering that. Or if you have to have a temporary workspace until you're able to afford a really reliable internet access, your own, not borrowed, password from somebody, your neighbor that, sometimes is in town, sometimes not. You want to have your own. You could even purchase mobile Wi-Fi units. They're not very expensive, but it goes with you, okay? Equipment. So some employers do offer equipment, some of them don't. Usually if they offer equipment, they'll tell you that. Rule of thumb, a red flag is if an employer is asking you to pay for the equipment before you start the job, okay? That's a red flag, major red flag. Don't send money to an employer. Don't do it. If
That
you
has
have-
happened to me before.
it has.
Yeah, I'm like, what?
There
No.
are tons of scams. So do not pay for equipment. If they have like Walmart has remote roles, believe it or not. Again, it's dealing with customers. I'm not sure who wants to do that. But they have remote roles that offer equipment. Walmart is right up the street. So if anything seems fishy and you're hiring through Walmart, go up to Walmart. If it's a company that you're familiar with, which is why I like hybrid roles, because some of those will say, we need you to come in at least 2 days a week, but the other 3 days you can work from home. Those are a little more reliable as well, because it should be a company you can go to, right? If you have other questions. The thing about remote roles is, what does that say? Oh, private workspace. The thing about remote roles that can be kind of nerve-wracking is when they say remote, they mean remote to you too. So usually if you're in person, if I have a question, I can go to Kim and ask her, or she can make copies for me, or that doesn't happen with remote. It is all on you. So you more than likely, you won't have someone readily available if you have questions, especially in the beginning. So you want to think about those things as you're looking at some of the job descriptions. And it's like, oh, I can do that, I could do that, I could do that. If someone is training me, but if someone's not physically there, you're gonna be missing that in a remote role. So really think about those things. The private workspace. I hear people with small children and pets and all that, and they wanna go remote. It's not a magic pill. If that baby is loud, usually at 2:15, they're gonna be loud. That baby does not care that you have a remote job. That dog probably doesn't care that your door is closed from this time to this time, right? Depending on how big your dog is. So you want to make sure you actually have a private space that's quiet, right? Unless, I've seen some roles that are mainly chatting or via email, but they are very few and far between. Okay, so most roles you're gonna have to be on the phone. You might even have to be on camera. So either your employer is viewing you, or your manager, or you're in meetings, right? You're in team meetings. So make sure your workspace is actually a private workspace, okay? And then you do have trains coming by your house? You know, are you over there by Taylor? Do you have any planes going by? Like all those things make a difference. And then making sure you're paying attention to W-2 versus 1099. Most remote roles I see are 1099, which is gross. You're responsible for your taxes. Okay. Has anybody done 1099 or contract roles before? Yes. Okay. Okay. Yes. So you're responsible for your taxes. If you don't know what that looks like, guess what? The employer thinks you already know because you're applying for that job. So make sure you're paying attention. That basically means that I earn that money, but I can't spend it all. Some of that has to go towards taxes. Otherwise, you get a lovely tax time. And if you're not used to paying, see, a lot of folks are used to getting a refund. I don't know what they're talking about. I don't get those $1,000 refunds. I'm happy if I break even. I may get a couple $100, but it's usually going back into the bill for next year for the tax season, right? So 1099 means you're responsible for your taxes, okay? W-2, obviously, that's a traditional way companies taking care of like Social Security and taxes and things like that. So you don't necessarily have to worry about that. Benefits. Are you in need of benefits? So some people coming off of in-person jobs full-time are used to a certain pay, and then they see the benefits of going remote, but they lose benefits. So you want to make sure if your budget right now includes like your medical and all that, if you're switching to remote, that may not be there. So make sure you're paying attention to the post, because the pay will feel very different if you're used to benefits and all of a sudden you don't have them. PTO and vacation is still important remote. I know this fantasy of, well, I'm working at home and I can do laundry and I can cook and I can, take care of the kid. You will still need PTO and vacation. You don't want to do that every day for the rest of your life. You're gonna need a break. So pay attention to PTO rules and vacations. Even though you're working from home, you are still working and you will feel it, especially if remote jobs are new to you. And then time blocking. This is huge. This is kind of like a personal growth kind of thing. Time blocking. Make sure you're paying attention to the time that you're getting ready. Don't brush your teeth 5 minutes before you have to clock in for that remote job. Okay, you still got to get up, get the kids ready, eat breakfast, walk the dog. do everything you need to do to get to that, right, private workspace so you can literally work for the day. They expect you to be focused and ready. So although it's at home, I know sometimes we have this thing where, okay, I can have pajama pants and I can just throw on the top, but no, you want to be presentable and ready, wide awake. So time block is important before, kind of have a cushion before and after and in your breaks. Budget like a boss. What does that mean? So some of the benefits of remote work is that you probably won't have to pay as much for gas and traveling, things like that, upkeep of your car. But you want to make sure, like we talked about with the taxes, that you're paying attention to that. How much is your equipment? Now you got to have bougie internet, right? It's got to be consistent. Make sure you're writing down your goals. So if you are switching, and this is for any of my transitioning professionals, we talk about this. Why are you switching? If you go to remote, what will that mean as far as your long-term, short-term goals? And keep that in front of you. This is the part that we don't always talk about, but as a job coach, I talk about often. You do not want to go into a job, any job, whether it's remote or not, and have to quit because you can't afford whatever that lifestyle is. Some of the things we saw during the pandemic, people couldn't stand having all their kids at different ages in the house for more than 5 hours at a time. Drove them crazy. They ate up everything. I have nothing in my house anymore to eat. They eat constantly. I'm cleaning constantly. My spouse has this thing that they do that drives me crazy. Things like that come up when you're in your house all the time. So that private workspace is important. Time blocking is very important. You are now in control of that in remote work. Okay, nobody's coming to your desk telling you it's not a separate space. Believe it or not, having a separate space to work is very important mentally to get that work done long term. So I hate for people to step into a job they think is awesome and they have to quit for some of these things, but just not thinking about it. So I just left that there. Employers assume you already know all this stuff. They assume you already know the taxes thing, you already figured out the workspace thing, you've already figured out things. They assume you already know. They are not going to be your job coach, but you can come talk to me. Okay, and we can have that conversation. Don't expect your employer to do that. Power of personal branding. So digital first impression. So cover letter, resume. A lot of people that I'm finding in DeKalb and in the area are not on LinkedIn at all. Or if they're on there, they don't have a picture. Or if they're on there and they have a picture, they don't connect the company page to the companies they worked for before. So when you upload your profile onto LinkedIn and you put in there the companies you work for and kind of your position in the timeline, you can link the actual company. A lot of companies have LinkedIn pages. So you want to make sure that link is live directly to the page. Why do I say that? Because a lot of times you connect with old coworkers, old supervisors, the ones you forgot their titles or their last name. It's a good way to keep your references. There's a way people do reference letters even on there. I got a really special one that I was surprised to see pop up on my LinkedIn. But it's a way to stay connected professionally, even with old schools you've gone to, some networking groups you've been a part of. It's a great way to have some information on there that an employer who's looking for someone with a certain skill set can see. They are actively recruiting on LinkedIn. Employers are actively recruiting on LinkedIn, meaning you could get an email or a phone call from an employer if you have an active profile on LinkedIn. Now, it does depend on the type of companies you're looking for, but most of them have a page. They even have a section, if you go to an employer's page, where you can click their about section, and a lot of them have a little link at the bottom to just show your interest in that company. So it kind of opens up your profile specifically to that company because you're interested in them, whether they're hiring or not. Okay, just so you know. So little features like that exist electronically. And if you're stepping into the remote world, this is important for you to know. Okay.
Should they also check the open to work box?
They can check the open to work box if you're ready to get these emails. Because as soon as you say open to work, that literally means you're opening up employers to reach out to you, or headhunters, recruiters, okay? So if you're ready for that, yes, check the open to work box. I think they'll even put like a little thing on your profile picture. It's open to work. It's like a little tag thing for your face. But yes, you can do that too. So ATS AI versus the human eye. A lot of times we assume that there are human eyes looking at our resume and cover letter first. more than likely that is not the case. There's these AI is not new. This chat GPT and stuff like that is new to us, but it is not new to a lot of companies. Employers get, maybe 500 applications for a role they have 2 open spots for. There is no person sitting there looking at 500. They're not gonna do it. They would quit probably at $2.99 because they have to read through it. After a while, your brain goes a little loopy trying to read all that. So they run it through what they call an ATS scan. And what they're scanning for are keywords that are attached to the job description you're applying for. So if you're not, so I was an English major. So if you're not an English major, or you don't have a knack for writing, or you're not taking a look at the job description you want, and making sure some of those keywords are also literally in your resume somewhere, you got to take the time to do that. Now, I do that for clients here, just as a part of the service I offer. But that is huge because that ATS scan is looking for keywords that match the job description. So that means a human person may not actually see you have 15 years of experience for the job you're applying for because you have no keywords that match it. Because it's a computer that looks at it first and then someone grabs it. Okay. Their mindset is, let me get rid of anybody who's just not qualified. Right. So if none of the keywords are there, or it's very little, they're going to toss it out. They haven't even seen the work that you've done on it. Okay. Consistent, clear, and concise. So if you are on social media with your government name, because a lot of places won't let you make up cool names anymore, but with your government name and your identity, I'm gonna try to say this in the nicest way possible, your identity doesn't match what you're promoting, especially to remote employers, there's an issue. So what I've had people do is, if you have your party life on your Facebook account and you're applying for remote jobs, it makes a difference for the brand of the company that you're wanting to work for, right? Even if it's not wild, but it's personal, I would either mark those accounts as private, or I would archive a lot of old things or private things. Why? Because you would still have access to your fun pictures if you want to show them to people, but it's not live for just an employer to go Google and see, right? They don't have access to it. Or just take it down. Go old school, print your pictures, put them in a little book in your room. That way you can still have memories, but you don't want it to jeopardize your future, right? So you want to be consistent with your resume, consistent with your LinkedIn. It should all kind of look similar, right? Contact and accessibility. Some people overskip this, right? They skip this. Your voicemail. Everybody pull out your phone. Is your voicemail box full right now?
No.
Are you sure? Are you doubly sure? Whatever number, huh?
I said, I'm positive.
Okay, perfect. Whatever phone number you have on your resume and cover letter should match, and it should be your current phone number. They should be able to leave a message, and you actually check messages. If you're actively applying for work, doesn't matter where, and you're not checking your email and your voicemail, you are missing out. You want to make sure you are checking and have it available to check both. Double check your email. Right now, Hotmail is very old. So if you still have a Hotmail account, please get a Gmail or Yahoo at the very least, just to show that you're at least somewhat with it. Again, we're applying for remote jobs, so we want to show them we're capable of moving forward, right? So make sure you're checking that. Believe it or not, so many people, and make sure your email is professional. Big Day 69 is not gonna work. It's not. Twerk Queen, I've seen all sorts of things, and you might have had this email address forever, so you don't want to change. There's actually features where you can create an alternate email for the same email box. I forgot what it's called, but there's a way you can do that. So if they're sending it to this one, okay, this is professional, this is just junk mail, so I might just sign up for it randomly. Believe it or not, that makes a difference. please make sure, just check it, just for my sake, check it. And then make sure you're authentic and honest. I do not lie. I may embellish just a little bit on people's resume, but I do not flat out lie. Why? Because you are in that interview. I can't go with you. So you gotta attest for everything you put on that paper. I had someone put, I'm expert in Microsoft Excel. I said, you are? I said, oh, and I started naming different formulas I've used in Excel before. They had no idea what I was talking about. Then do not put expert. You can keep Excel on there, but why would you put expert? Don't stretch it. Bring it back. I'm familiar with Excel. You know what that says? If I'm an employer, if I have an Excel sheet that I already have my formulas with, this person might be able to just keep, entering the data and keep up with the sheet. If I say expert, I'm gonna hand them Excel and have them create my spreadsheet for me, right? That's a huge difference as an employer who needs that spreadsheet, right? So, excuse me, just make sure. And then current versus future. So this is really for my, transitioning professionals. A lot of times when you're used to working in one industry, you speak a certain language, right? When you're transitioning into something different, you really got to sit down, and this is something I do really well, sit down and think about some of the really awesome things you've done. If you work for a long time, I guarantee there are things that you probably don't have on your resume and you don't bring up in your interview that are powerful to speak to who you are as a leader, especially when you're transitioning. Listen, communication, leadership skills, management, being on time, being committed, being dedicated for a long time are still extremely important in the marketplace. It is nothing better for an employer to see, I put somebody in this role and they do amazing and I could depend on them doing that role, right? Now you can cross-train and things like that, but if I could depend on you doing the role I hired you for, that's what they're looking for, right? And unfortunately, not everyone's doing that. So if you have that, because you have a work history, that is still very powerful and valuable, okay? So personal branding, employers assume you're applying in order to join a team, solve a problem, and meet a specific need. This is what should be at the top of your resume, okay? How have you joined a team? How do you solve problems? How do you meet a specific need? Not an objective, but a summary. How do you do that? You can expand on that more in your cover letter. So if every employer is looking for this, we got to make sure this is included. So that might mean journaling a few things, think about things you've done outside of your job description, think about some examples you could bring up. This will also be a good pinpoint for your interview, whether it's on Zoom, or you have to go in and do some training, but you want to make sure you're speaking to these strengths. And everybody's a little bit different, right? Everybody's got strengths and weaknesses, and that's fine. You just got to make sure you go through and try to remember yours, okay? If we can go to the next one. So resume and cover letter. For the resume, formal document itemizing your work experience, achievements, education and qualifications, your unique talent, skills, and abilities. Not the fact that you love dogs or that you kayak every other weekend. Put that on. Okay. This QR code is actually a free ATS scan. So if you wanted to upload your resume, you could scan that code. And it's through an organization I work with called Talent Inc. I meant to ask this, does anybody write resumes really well? Does anybody write resumes? No? Okay. There's a remote opportunity. That's why I was asking. I'm not sure if they're hiring right now, but I've done that since like 2016, off and on for a company out of New York. It's legit, so it's legitimate. I've been doing it for a while. When they pay you, you can actually use it at Walmart. You can actually use actual money. So I just wanted to include that. Every now and then I come across people who are really good writers. And then your cover letter, please don't dismiss the cover letter. If a company mentions a cover letter, even if they don't say it's required, it's a good idea to add a cover letter. It's a formal letter addressed to the employer to summarize why you feel you are an ideal fit for a specific job. If you're not switching up your cover letter each time, you're doing it wrong. Okay? It may be similar, but if it's exactly the same, you're doing it wrong. Okay, these two are huge. This is the majority of the service I offer job seekers. A lot of people see this as very simple, and so they skip it, they don't emphasize it. And again, this is your virtual handshake to any job. They are not doing walk-ins anymore. Okay, the secretaries, administrative assistants, the office manager roll their eyes when they get people walking in there saying, hey, my name is so-and-so and I have all this amazing experience. Can I get an interview? Most of the time, 90% of the time, I'll say at least, they're gonna tell you to apply online. Even at job fairs, which is like job fair. I'll go, but I don't really like them. A lot of times they just tell you to apply online, right? So that's a waste. A lot of times they're done, okay? So especially with remote jobs, make sure that stuff is together. Now, LinkedIn, I wanted to include the symbol for LinkedIn so you know you're at the right site when you get there. It's just linkedin.com. Again, just a little bit about what their initial intent was with LinkedIn. It's business and employment focused social media platform. They have millions of members now. You can manage your personal brand there. You can include links to media, or if you have like links to any other website or like a link tree or anything you have like a portfolio online, you can link a lot of that through LinkedIn. You can engage with professional networks there. They have tons of them, and you can actually access additional knowledge, insights, and career opportunities right in the platform. So they have many classes you can take online. They even have like interview prep services there. They have a lot of little things that you can kind of, just to keep your mind fresh with professional things. They have some certificates and things on there too. A lot of places like Google and Microsoft, they have networking organizations that will promote different trainings that may be available that people can do from home. So there's a lot of little things on there if you're interested, okay? And then let's go. Finding legitimate remote jobs. You guys ready? Take a picture or take notes, okay? You ready? These are my sources. These are the only places I go to find remote jobs. We got LinkedIn #1, roberthalf.com, usajobs.gov, believe it or not. WAH stands for Work at Home, Job Queen. She's amazing, but she will definitely email you every day. So if you don't want emails every day, don't go to the site. And then the momproject.com. The last one I'll tell you, the momproject.com, the feature that they offer for a lot of their jobs is that if an employer is interested, they're going to contact you through that site. So they have a dashboard when you create a site. When you log in, you'll see the dashboard. And if an employer wants to contact you, they have to connect with you in the site. If you get a random text message, which has happened to me, it is not legitimate. Okay, if they send you a text message saying they saw your application on the Mom Project and they want to interview you, and then they text you email interview questions, and then you respond and they tell you, oh, you've passed the interview, this is a scam. It's not just in the Mom Project, it's all over, but it's a clear indication that it's a scam. Okay, so with the Mom Project, if you apply, you're going to do the whole process in their dashboard that protects you, right, as a job seeker, to make sure you're talking to a legitimate company. So those, can we go back just a little bit? So those links there are the only sources I've gone to find legitimate jobs. And why do I say that? Because I don't like to promote anything that I haven't personally seen myself. So I've applied to jobs on all of these just to see what the process is like, to see if I get responses back from employers, right? Or at least from the platform to say, thank you for applying. If we're interested, we'll reach out. As well as if they have links to the company page. So LinkedIn will have a lot of links to company pages, which makes us feel better, right? It's to make sure it's legitimate. But all of these have remote jobs on there every single day. Every day, there are remote jobs available. The Work at Home Job Queen, you'll see a lot of entry-level customer service. I think CVS, United Health, a lot of their jobs, I've seen Walmart on there. A lot of those remote jobs I've seen on her site. And most of them take you directly to the company page, okay? Yeah.
So I'm just gonna throw
Sure.
this out there because it seems obvious to me. There's some very big things that are missing. So like, I'm not seeing up there monster.com or Indeed, or what are some of the other job search?
Too many scams. Way too many for my comfort.
Yep.
I've gotten a lot of text messages. Can you text me a copy of your ID? Can you text me your social security card? Can you email me and attach this or that? Like, and I think because there's less security with texting, I think maybe that's why they do the texting scam more. Or it's a company, you know, they'll send information, but it's no company logo on the document. And a lot of companies, when they want you to sign something, they'll use something like DocuSign. You know, DocuSign is a very popular feature. And they don't do any of these. And so it's a red flag to me. Or I'll go back some of them.
I'm sorry, but I agree with the Indeed because it's a lot of scams on there because they have your number and then they can just text you. And, you know, that happened to me when a guy he wanted me to get on Teams and he like, but it's a $35 deposit.
Oh, yeah.
To start. Like what? That doesn't. I knew it was a scam after that because I've had work from home jobs and they don't reach out to you that way. So and it was a lot of errors. Like when he was typing. I'm like, it's too many errors.
Yes. And I know I'm an English major, so some stuff is gonna rub me wrong. But when it's, you know, too many, it's no apostrophes where it should be, or too much slang, or it's like too convenient. It gets the hairs up on my neck, right? So, and a lot of the companies, they don't really, like Indeed or Monster doesn't intend to scam people, but they don't do a lot of the work it takes to verify that companies are legitimate companies that are hiring, right? Companies pay money to get on these sites, and that's all they really need. If you put in a fake address or a PO box or something like that, a lot of companies, they'll suffice, but they don't have anything set in place to verify those companies. So no, that's exactly why I don't have them up there. So not to say that they don't exist. The role that I found writing resumes, I found it back in 2016. So this was 4 years before the pandemic, and I thought it was a scam. So I was all set up to be scammed when I applied for it, and I found that on Indeed. So there are some that are legitimate, but for me, it's just too many for my comfort at this point. I think now because everybody's going remote, you know, it's an opportunity for scammers to get your money.
I'm just curious, how many people use Indeed right now or something along those lines?
Actually, I'm on it, but my phone, I had to install like a robo thing because I was getting so many calls and I'd answer them. They were like, oh, you want to, here's money to go back to school or this or that. I'm like, that's not what I asked to do.
Yeah.
So.
And unfortunately, it's a unique way for companies to make money, right? So they're like, oh, we know what people are going to register. They want, it's like a unique way of doing ads, right? Instead of it being in your face, they're going to call, they're going to text, or they're going to email, right? So unfortunately, it's an avenue for them to make money. But listen, we ain't got time for that. I'm trying to work.
I have a question. So, like, how do you know when a text message, like, from a company is legit? Because, you know, like, if you guys go to Buckle and you know how you sign up for the coupons and they send you a message through, like, a number that's, like, 21864, how do you know, like, do companies, when they send you a text message, is it an actual phone number? Or would it be like that little number that like you get in the coupons? Like, how do you know that?
You know what's funny about that? That you can't know from that, because that's a feature that anybody can purchase. So a company could have legitimately purchased a text messaging service. Even our church has a text messaging service. It's a legitimate service, and it's a little number code. You won't. From that, you won't know.
Okay, I didn't know if, like, you know, looking for like bigger numbers, like. Because that service is so popular now, it could be a legitimate company. It's not necessarily a scam if they use those small. I mean, they they include that feature in some of the packages employers get just for communicating, like, you know, like a Zoom, like a Teams, they include that as a feature. So unfortunately, no, you can't just tell from that either, because it could be legitimate. It could be legitimate, unfortunately. No, feel like we gotta study some IT stuff in order to get past some of these scams. But they create stuff all the time. You know, they see something happening in the industry and then they try to adjust to it. So
And they're smart.
They are. So if it feels funny to you, I mean, if there's a way to get directly to the company, that's what I would do. Yeah. Even if it's just to reach out, just to verify. I've bombarded the Mom Project a lot because I said, I've got
text messages claiming and and they were like, no, ma'am, we'll look into it, but that does not sound like us. And they responded very quickly because they know that their platform is full of remote jobs. And so if companies are responding in that way, it's probably a good sign that they want to make sure that legitimate jobs available. Oh, and the Mom Project is not just for moms. Just they accept anybody, dads, uncles. Anybody can apply. That's just kind of their feature. And it's kind of to emphasize someone looking for flexible work. Okay. And then red flags, we talked about it, text interview questions, requesting ID or social security before offer, requesting payment for software or equipment. There's a few other things, but those are the major ones that I've seen for sure that have been red flags for me. Again, I couldn't put the number on there because it could be a dedicated phone number that they have, but it could be a smaller code as well, just because I've seen it legitimately in companies, so I wouldn't want to write that off. So you just want to make sure. And then this is just bonus information. Does anybody needs to go back to the list of the links?
No, I just had a question about what job queen, you said they have a lot of emails, is that what you said?
She will email you just about every day.
Oh.
So your mailbox will be full. And it's not a monitored, the email that you receive jobs from is not a monitored mailbox. So if you reply, it won't go. So it's kind of like an automatic thing. She just sends, as soon as she gets jobs, she sends it out, because sometimes it's those texting, like apply to be like just via text and email, so you're not talking to people. Those type of jobs go fast. But it's for companies that I've heard of. It's for bigger companies that I've heard of, which I appreciate. The other thing about the work at home job queen, I should have put it on here as well. There are ads on her website. So if you click the link and go to her website, you gotta scroll down to get to the actual jobs. Okay. Don't click on anything before they're all ads, but you'll see the list of jobs when you get to it.
Okay.
And when you click on those, they'll more than likely take you to the company page.
Okay.
But don't be surprised if you get an email about a job and you really want to go check on it, and by the next day it's gone. Those goes really, really, really fast. But they pop up again every now and then.
Oh.
And some of them are interesting. So like I said, I've seen U-Haul on there, CVS, a lot of United Health I've seen on Walgreens, Walmart. Yeah, and again, they're going directly to the company page, which makes me feel safe. And like I've even backtracked. So I get real specific. I'm like, I'm gonna go through her site and then I'm gonna come completely out and I'm gonna try to find a job on my own to make sure, and it will come to the same page.
Okay.
So it's a legitimate job. So I know some people do that as well. But yeah, so we talked a little bit about this already, but these are just extra tips. And the reason why I said it's top secret is because as a professional executive resume writer, this is how I generate another stream of income, is writing resumes. But this is something everybody can do if you take your time to do it. So job applications are what the employer wants to know. Your resume is what you want the employer to know. So you feel empowered about what you send out. And if you can go to the next one. I basically look at the job description. So if you ever want to meet with me, sometimes I'll say, okay, send me your resume, but then send me a job description or a link to a job description of a position you want to apply for. This is where those keywords come in, okay? Job description, just in general, an office administrator is a professional who oversees operations. We don't talk like the job description, right? Some employers don't even know what's on their job description, right? But pull that, and then you can pull from the company's mission statement, especially if it's something you really want, right? If it's a job or a company that you really want to get into, this is how you can be competitive. You take these two and you make sure it's in your resume and cover letter, or both. You go to the next slide. And not word for word, but you can take those statements and make sure they're somewhere in your resume. You want to know another trick that I've done? It's kind of sneaky though. It's a little sneaky. But I may take one phrase from either one of those, like let's say the mission statement, because it may seem really hoity-toity up there, like nobody ever talks like this. But I might put it at the end, the footer of my resume, and just make it white, change the color of the text to white. So the person never reads it, but the ATS scans picks it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll do that. It's kind of sneaky though.
Yeah, it's fine.
Being sneaky.
Exactly. Because playing their game.
Right, because sometimes the language that they're using really isn't professional language,
No.
but it's a mission statement that may seem really grand or whatever. And you may actually identify with it, but it's not really appropriate to put anywhere on your resume.
Yeah.
So I've done that a couple times, just a couple times, not a lot. I've done it before. Just so the ATS scan picks it up. And again, this is the QR code for that resume. Again, it's free. It's connected to the site, like I said, where I write resumes from pretty consistently, but they have a free ATS scan. So if you wanted to go to the site, you can upload your resume and they'll email you results to say, based on this, it looks like you're strong in management, strong in this, and it helps with keywords. So some people don't have a keyword section on their resume at all. But it's a good thing to have. So you could say, what do I call it? Areas of maybe like qualifications or areas of expertise. And then I'll have a list of just keywords or phrases on there. Okay. So it's good for that. And then I do have my sign-up sheet for job coaching if anyone wants to work with me specifically. If it's just about one thing we talked about today, that's great. If you just want me to look at some things or review some jobs with you, I can. I am personally trying my hardest. It looks like a little, oh, that looks so funny. Anyway, I'm trying my hardest to work with local employers to see if there are opportunities for people to work remotely. I've seen some hybrid roles, but they don't always promote that, again, because they'll probably get thousands of applications.
Yeah.
So everybody assumes that they can do it. What I will say about the remote job world is that there are a lot of people applying, but very few people do everything that I've talked about today. Very few people look at all those different things when they're applying. And very few people who do those things can actually back it up, okay? So whatever you're promoting, make sure you can do it. The other thing I would mention, because we have folks in the room who fit this, but there are statistics to say most of the time, we don't apply for the jobs we're qualified for because we don't meet 100% what's on there, okay? That's statistically, that's what happens. My rule of thumb, if you glance that job description and see 60% of the stuff that you know how to do, apply. And job searching can definitely be a full-time job. So if you feel like you're applying too much, you're probably doing just enough. Okay, it could feel like that. Take a break if you need to. You don't want to wear yourself out because if you get a call for an interview, you want to be confident. And be confident in those Zooms. Play with Zoom. Zoom your siblings or your cousins or something and make sure your Zoom stuff works, right? The most products that companies are using is Zoom or Microsoft Teams. And they're free versions of both of those. So make sure if you're on Zoom, practice with some folks. Did I look okay? How was my background? Did it look funny? Was the sun coming in weird? Because you want to make sure that's not the first time they see you online, just when you go for that interview. You want to make sure you practice a little bit. Anybody had virtual interviews? Have you two had virtual? Oh, you have two virtual interviews?
I have.
How'd they go? Did it feel weird?
It was fun.
Yeah, it was because I've done it before. I had like about 3 work from home jobs, so it was normal for me. But it was just like some people on there, they were just like really, they didn't know that they had to turn their camera on. And then like, oh my God, but my hair's not done and I'm still in the bed and I don't have on a shirt. And it's like, why don't you have on a shirt? And this is an interview, like you have to show your face, like as if you were in person.
Yeah. And I know we're saying that with the K on the screen right now, but you don't have to show yourself right now. We're okay with that. just to clarify, just in case somebody has something smart to say, you're fine.
Okay.
But no, that is absolutely right. Like it's literally you're working, right? As if you're working in someone's office. The convenience is the space is just your space, right? So you definitely want to be available. And make sure you play around with talking to a screen if you've never done that. Right? Because that's weird. Like being in person versus being virtual is very different. So you want to make sure you're confident about that. Other than that, the hiring processes that I've personally gone through and have helped other people go through is not very different, right? Though you want to make sure that those things are in place so you can do the job you say you know how to do. Those are the sites, like I said, that I found the most legitimate jobs that I felt comfortable personally applying to. So that's the reason those are the only ones I share. Now, every now and then, like I said, if I come across some on like Indeed and things like that are legitimate, I share. So after I meet with folks one-on-one for job coaching, or they share their information with me, I email those out. So even that list that you guys see, I send to the township, but I also email to the clients I've worked with as well. So you guys can get firsthand, this is who's hiring. Now, I only do it once a week because I want to encourage people to do these searches for yourself, right? If you get a job that was posted that day, apply that day, but you want to be ready. So make sure your documents are ready. And again, if there's anything you need help explaining, gaps in your resume is a huge thing. We're talking two or more years where there's nothing. A lot of times we are doing stuff, but we just don't think it's worthy to put on the resume. But I'd much rather you cover gaps, because that's the employers will see right away gaps in years before they even like really read. They spend seconds on these documents. So we got to make sure they're reflecting exactly who you are and what you have to bring. Any questions? Yeah.
So would you consider even doing a workshop on covering those gaps? Because that's a big thing.
I would, that would probably be one-on-one, because it depends.
Okay.
My language would definitely change depending on
Okay.
the situation.
Okay.
It might be, well, why don't you, oh, dang, you just help your brain, or just help your neck.
Volunteer. Something.
And it's usually volunteering, right? It's usually something we did for our kids or ill parents. What I have done is I've reached out to elder care services here in town, because I've run into a lot of people locally that have gaps because they're helping elderly parents.
Mhm.
And so if that's the case, you're actually providing a service. Now, what I've done in the past with their resume is I've added it as a job. I've said they were caretaker.
Mhm.
I said they worked independently in DeKalb, right? And then I used the job description sort of like a caretaker, right? Because they're doing all those things. They're feeding, they're doing home care. So what I've done is I've tried to reach out to elder care services to see, because I believe there's a process through the state of Illinois where people can get compensated for that type of work. I just don't know what the requirements are. So I would love to add that as a resource for the clients that I talk to about that,
Yeah.
right?
Even a ramp for someone that's disabled.
Yes, even ramp, yes. But there are, if there's anything that you're doing that is actually a job out there, it needs to be on your resume, especially if it's gonna cover some of those gaps for you. Because it's almost impossible to do nothing for 2 years. Like, you did something,
Right.
some
Something.
coach,
Maybe it was couponing and I don't know.
you did hair for the local, okay, that's a stylist, and there are words for these
Yeah.
things. We think they're minimal, especially if we're hardworking. We just do the work. We don't
Right.
think about how to word it, but that's where I can come in to help with that wording.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? So you two ladies here, you've done remote work already. Where are some places you guys are finding, or have you started kind of looking right now, and what are you seeing in the market?
I've been looking, I've tried looking through Amazon, and a lot of the jobs that I have gotten like things back from, they have been scammed.
No,
There's a lot of fake Amazon out there,
there is.
since Amazon is so big. I've tried the Uline too.
Yeah.
And it's
Pretty
pretty
neat, huh?
back to me.
Okay.
So there's a lot of things that, like, I have a lot of jobs out there, but nobody's getting back.
Gotcha.
Or you get a phone call and they're like, oh, like, we love your resume, and then I go for an interview and then it's like no follow-up, like they're not following up, like, oh, hey, like, we moved down with the position, so
Yeah.
getting that back too really helps. As a company, you
Yeah.
should be telling people,
Yes.
okay, unfortunately, we're gonna pass on, otherwise it's a waiting game, and I'm sitting there waiting
Yeah.
like, oh, I still have an opportunity, or do I not, like.
Do you have any, so what I have done is help people with follow-up content as well, for you to follow up with them. So like
I've called them.
so thank you letters, or thank you cards I've done. Again, this is if you're really interested in pursuing. Some of them you're not that interested, you're like, whatever. But if you really are, that really does make a difference, because most companies, even outside of the industry, most companies are not responding.
No.
If you're not a good fit, they're just not responding, which seems ridiculous and unprofessional, but it's happening so much. I'm kind of preparing my job seekers for it.
Like, if you don't hear, just keep, if you really, really want it, you can go to the dollar store and get the little 8-pack of thank you cards and send something and say, hey, thank you. It's a reminder, right? For our end, it's a reminder to them. It's a reach back to them. But thank yous, if you still got their cards or something, thank you so-and-so for the interview. I'm still interested in this role. Just checking in to see how the process is going, right? It's just a little nudge, creative way that we can do that. But again, that's if you're really interested in that role, I would encourage that. It's happened to me personally several times. It has nothing to do with, you may be a fantastic person. It's just however they operate. They don't think that it's that important to reach out and say, no, we went with someone else. Or the job is still up and it should have been taken down. So it was fulfilled, but people didn't know it. It happens all the time. It happens way too often for me not to encourage job seekers like that. Please don't take it personal. It hurts. Yeah. Cause I know I can do, when we apply, we figure we know we can do that job very well. Right. That's our mindset, but a lot of employers are not even doing that bare minimum, unfortunately. And it could be a thing, it's just a mishap. It could be they don't have it in their process. It's just too many of them all over the place that aren't doing it. It's too common right now for me not to encourage job seekers. Like, just keep going. It could literally be a full-time job looking, fortunately.
So can I add something?
Sure.
So I am a former business owner. I have put together job postings. I have hired, and what I will say is oftentimes I'm putting together what I think in the most ideal of situations, I want a job to look like. But in the reality, if I have an amazing candidate, I might be flexible on certain things. When I decided to close my business and to re-enter the traditional workforce, I was really picky about what I was looking for, and I would discard jobs because they didn't quite match what I wanted. Danita actually had a connection to the township.
Yeah, I was gonna tell your business for you, but yes.
She had a connection to the township. She actually helped formulate my job description. For the township supervisor. She had some inside information. And I heard her talk about this job and I said, yeah, I know, but they're looking for this. And for me, it was a schedule thing. The original job posting said, I think 8:30 to 4:30. And I was really, really intentional about saying, nope, I want to be done by no later than 3. And she actually said, well, actually, there was some conversation with the supervisor about maybe they would get some different candidates if they were flexible. So because of the inside information she had, then I thought, well, then I'm going to apply for that job. And sure enough, when I sat down with the supervisor and did my interview, and, she and I seemed to it seemed like a good fit in all aspects except for that, 8:30 to 4:30 thing. She was willing to make the accommodation. And on the flip side of that, I said, if there's days I need to stay till 4:30, I can. It's just not something that I'm looking to do every single day. So, my point is that sometimes, like she says, she's working with employers locally. Sometimes she has that inside scoop on, aside from what they're pushing out there and what they're looking for in the most ideal situations, that doesn't mean that they're not going to be flexible or that there might not be some additional opportunity. So definitely having Danita's knowledge and working with her individually, I can say from personal experience, she will get you that inside info, and that might be a good connection.
And I think really it's just, thank you for that. And I think really it's just because we're speaking 2 different languages. We, as job seekers, you're seeking an opportunity that, you can be, you can have your skills and everything go to. Employers aren't thinking that way. They're thinking they need something for their business to continue to run. And so they may have systems in place already that kind of take care of the preliminary stuff, but they're human, just like we are. So a lot of times, if I'm having conversations with employers and I hear that there's flexibility in certain areas, that may not be something that they can promote. It may be an HR thing where they can't say it in a way on the job description out there in the public, but it could be something that they can discuss if they meet the right candidate, right? If you check all these other boxes, then this thing here we could be flexible on, but that's not something they can promote necessarily online for somebody to come back and say anything. So, I I mean, I wish you guys the very best of luck. Again, I have my schedule if anybody wants to set up a Zoom or a phone call later. But yeah, applying is definitely a full-time job. It definitely can be. I wish we got paid for it, but we don't. A little stipend or something. But we don't, but that's okay. But hopefully, you know, the resources will help you find something. Again, those are the most, you know, the most kind of consistent ones I've seen so far. And from what I understand, September is one of those months where the employers are starting to hire and call, things like that. So if you're not already actively out there, get out there, you know, brush off the scams. They are there. So I know that for sure. I've been scammed several times myself. Unfortunately, that's kind of how the market is right now, but
So the world is.
it's rough.
Definitely.
But there are legitimate ones too. So I hate for people to miss out.
So Lisa, Keandra, I'm getting ready to end our Zoom call here, the recording officially. Before I do that, is there anything that either of you, any final questions or anything like that?
No, not really. She really answered a lot.
Okay. And do you have, both of you have Danita's contact information, or if you don't have it, you're welcome to call the township here and we'll definitely put you in contact with her if you need any services.
Okay, yeah, I'll call.
Okay, very good. So I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect them.
Thank you.
Thanks
for
so much.
joining
Okay,
us.
have a nice day.
You too.
Thanks for having me.